Let's create a WordPress membership site with absolutely no specialized membership plugins. My name's Elijah from Breakdance, and in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. We'll cover how to set up your WooCommerce store, how to set up a WooCommerce subscription for a monthly subscriber option, and how to set up single products for one-off purchases. We'll also be covering how to use advanced custom fields to create a post type, and how to create fields for that post type and your products to link them together. Finally, we'll be covering how to use Breakdance's conditions and dynamic data features to introduce the logic needed to gate all of your paid content behind a paywall. But first, I want to show you exactly what we're going to be building. So you can see here we have a Patreon-inspired homepage with a Home and About tab. On the Home tab, if you scroll down, you're going to see a list of products. These WooCommerce products are actually linked to a custom post type in the back end. If we click on one of the products, it's just going to show us the option to purchase that specific product. And if we view the custom post type associated with that product, we get a notice that we have to pay to access that content. We have the option to either purchase individual pieces of content, or we can click the Join Now button to buy the All Access subscription, which will give us access to all content on the site. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like by purchasing the All Access subscription. I'll go ahead and sign up now. And now that I've completed that purchase, if I view one of these pieces of content, I get a notice that shows me that I've purchased access to that content. And if I refresh one of the posts associated with my WooCommerce products, you can see that I'm now shown the content rather than a notice saying I need to pay for the content. Now on the back end, the way we've set this up is with WooCommerce, of course, and I've got a couple of products, two of which are individual pieces of content, and one is our monthly supporter All Access Pass that gives you access to all content. Now under Advanced Custom Fields, we've created a post type called Paid Content. And then we've created a couple of custom fields to link our products to our paid content posts and our paid content posts to our products. Now, before we get started, if you want to save a little bit of time, we have a few InstaWP links in the video description that will fire up WordPress installs instantly for you to follow along. Use the blank WordPress link to start from scratch, just like me. Use the follow along link to fire up a WordPress site that already has the necessary plugins installed. This will save you a few minutes. Or if you're in a really big hurry, you can just use the complete site link to fire up your own copy of the completed membership site from this tutorial. You can then customize it and export it or migrate it to your own environment using InstaWP's migration tools. Now let's get on to building the site. Our first task is to install some kind of payments plugin. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using WooCommerce. So we're going to click Add New from our plugins page in the WordPress admin panel and search for WooCommerce. And once we found that, we can go ahead and hit Install Now and activate that. Now, I'm just going to speed through some of this store setup stuff because it's not really relevant to what I want to show you in this tutorial. So we'll just pick some random options here. We're going to untick all of these extra plugins because we only want to have the plugins that are required for what we're building here. So let's hit Continue. Now we are going to need a payment gateway in order to be able to test this. And you're going to need a payment gateway to be able to sell products. So let's go ahead and run through that really quickly. Now, WooCommerce has its own payments option, which is really convenient and lets you hook into various payment providers. So I would suggest looking into that if you're going to be running a store. This should vastly simplify your process. You can also hook up to Stripe or PayPal payments. But in this case, I'm going to do a gateway called Cash on Delivery, which just lets me make orders, but not actually have to enter any payment information. So let's click Manage. And this all looks good, so we'll save that. Now we need something to actually sell. So we need to start setting up some products. So under Products here in the sidebar, we can click Add New. Now let's start with our basic one-off products. The first one's going to be a behind the scenes documentary, and we'll just add a little bit of lorem ipsum there to fill out the content. I'm going to set this as virtual so that we don't worry about any shipping details. And then let's set the price to $5.99. We're also going to want to add a product image. So let's select that and go to Media Library. And I've uploaded a few images to use here. So let's go ahead and pick this one. And that should be about it for now. So let's go ahead and publish that product. Now we have one more basic kind of one-off product that we want to offer, which is going to be an exclusive podcast. So we'll just say exclusive podcast, drop in some content. We're going to set the product image again, and then we're going to go down and choose virtual and set the price to $1.99. Let's go ahead and save this product as well. Now we are going to need to note these product IDs. So I'm going to go back to all products here. And if you hover over the product name, you're going to see the ID just below that. So this is 38 and this is 37. So I'm going to note those down off screen here. So these are our basic products, the one-off purchases. If you also want to offer a monthly pass, you are going to need WooCommerce subscriptions. So I'm going to jump over here and install that really quickly. WooCommerce subscriptions is an official add-on that does allow you to sell products with recurring fees. So with that in place, we can now create our final product, which is going to be our monthly supporter pass. So let's go into products and add new, and we'll say monthly supporter all access pass, because this is going to unlock all of the products, even if you haven't purchased them. As long as you have an active subscription, they will be available to you. So let's drop in some content here, set a product image. I believe I have a key here, so that's perfect. And then now we need to select simple subscription as the product type. And I'm going to set this price at $19.99 every month. That's perfect. Never expire. You can also add sign-up fees, free trials, sale prices, etc. But we don't need that for this example. So now that that subscription product is created, we're going to note its product ID as well, which we can actually find up here in the URL where it says post equals. That number is our product ID. So let me go ahead and write that down. And let me make sure this is virtual as well, because I don't want it thinking it needs to collect shipping information. So that's all of our WooCommerce side setup. The next thing we need to do is create actual posts that'll hold our paid content. We could use normal posts or pages for this, but in this case, I want a custom post type, which is just like a post or a page, but it has its own name and attributes. The easiest way to set up your own custom post type with its own custom fields is going to be advanced custom fields. So we're going to go to plugins and add new. Once we're here, we're going to search for advanced custom fields and press enter. You don't need the pro version of advanced custom fields to achieve what we want, so we're just going to use the free version from the WordPress repository. Once that's installed, let's go ahead and activate it. Now that we have advanced custom fields installed, we need to go to ACF in the admin menu here and go to post types. And we're going to click add post type. The post type is going to be called paid content, paid content. Keep the post type key as paid-content. And then we shouldn't need to make any other adjustments to this post type. So let's save our changes here. Perfect. Now we can click add fields to paid content to get the fields we need. And in fact, we only need one field, which is going to be a number field. So let's find number here. And the field label is going to be linked product. We're going to use this field to tell Breakdance which product needs to be purchased to access this particular post. We can leave the field name as default, and default value should be blank. Now let's scroll down and change where this field is going to be applied. We're going to show it if the post type is equal to paid content. Because we added this directly after creating our paid content post type, it already knew where to apply it. So let's save the changes. Now we're going to need one more field group for the product post type. So let's add a new field group and we'll call it product fields. And here we're going to add a URL field, and we're going to call this paid content URL. This will allow us to enter the URL to our paid content post so that we can link to it from our individual product pages. Keep the field name as default and then go down. We're going to change it to post type is equal to product instead of post. Let's save those changes. Now we actually need to create our paid content posts. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up our products list, and you can see we also have our paid content list. So let's open that up in a new tab. Now, we don't need a piece of content for our all access pass because that's just a monthly subscription to give you access to all the content that exists. It's not an individual piece of content. So we only need paid content for these two products. So let's just copy the name here and click Add New over here on our paid content list. We'll paste that in, and then I'll just paste in some dummy content that includes an audio embed since this is supposed to be a podcast. Now remember that custom field we set up, the linked product field. We need to populate that as well. So since we have this up over here on this tab, we can look at the ID of this product, which is 38, and we'll enter that here in the linked product field. Let's go ahead and publish this bit of paid content. Now we just need to do the same thing for the other product that we have. So we can click Add New over here on the admin panel. And again, we're just going to copy this title across to be the title of this paid content post. And then the product ID is 37. So let's go ahead and drop that in. And then I'll drop in some more dummy content that has a video embed. And let's go ahead and publish that. So we've set up WooCommerce. We've set up a custom post type, and we've set up some custom fields. Let's make sure this is published, and then let's go ahead and do our last bit of backend setup here before we jump into designing things. So we're going to go to our products, and we're going to populate that custom field that we set up on our products, that paid content URL. So to do that, we've come to our paid content list here, and for each piece of paid content, we're going to right-click the view link and click Copy Link Address. This will get us the URL to the front end of that content. Then we'll go to the corresponding product and drop that URL into the paid content URL field. This will be very important here in just a minute when we start setting everything up in Breakdance. Now that we've done that for our podcast post, we need to go back to all products and do the same for our documentary. So we'll open up the documentary, go back over to our paid content posts, grab the view address, and then drop that into the paid content URL and update that. So that covers the bulk of our backend setup. Now we can start using Breakdance to design things and set up our front-end display logic that makes this really a membership site. Now, if you don't already have Breakdance installed, you will need to install and activate that. You can follow along without a Pro license, but you will need to upgrade to Pro to use everything in this tutorial on a live site. Or you can just skip all that and use one of the InstaWP links that we've provided in the video description. So the first thing we need is a header. So let's go to Breakdance and headers, and we're going to add a header. This header we'll just call header. Very creative, I know. And location will be everywhere. We'll add the header and then go ahead and edit that in Breakdance. Now there's nothing too complicated about this header. Basically, we're going to drop in a header builder, and on that we are going to enable overlay, which will allow this to be a transparent overlay header on our homepage. Now inside the header builder, we're going to drop an image, and we can just click or drag this image into our canvas. And we'll go ahead and choose from our media library. I've already uploaded an SVG logo here that we'll use, and we'll choose that. Now this image we do want to turn into a link, so we'll click link, we'll choose URL, and then we can just put a / to refer to the homepage of the site. We'll close that out, and then we need to add a button. So this is just going to be button. We'll click that to drop it in, and it falls right over here where we want it on the right-hand side. Now don't worry about the styling. This is going to be styled by Breakdance's global styles here in just a minute once I import the homepage from our design library. But we do need to change the text to say join now. And we do want to link it to one of our products. So let's go back here to products, all products, and we want to grab the view URL for the monthly supporter pass. So we'll copy the link address, go back over and drop it in here. You can also just search for what you want to link to using the link interface. But since we've already got it, we don't need to do that. So that's basically our header design, but we're going to do one kind of tricky thing here. We don't want the header to overlay on our individual product pages or maybe anywhere except for our home page. So we're going to add a section. This will act as a spacer. But because we don't want it on our home page, we're going to have to use a condition. This is our first use of conditions in this tutorial, but we'll be going much deeper into conditions once we start setting up our front-end logic for the payment gating. To get to conditions for an element, select it, go to the gear icon or settings tab in the properties panel, and open the conditions section. Then click edit conditions to start adding conditions. A condition just controls the logic that decides whether an element is shown or not. So in this case, we only want to show it when we're not on the home page. So we'll go to dynamic data, which allows us to pull data from the current post. We'll find post title. And since I know we're going to name our home page home, I'll just plug in home. You'll also want to make sure that the operand is set to is not, because we want to show this spacer everywhere except for the home page. Let's go ahead and apply conditions. So now this element will only show when we're not viewing the home page, which is perfect for the particular use case we're going for. And we'll see that in action on the home page here in a minute. For now, let's save, go back to WordPress, and let's go ahead and set up our footer. So we'll go to Breakdance Footers and click Add Footer. We'll just call this footer and apply everywhere once again. Now let's edit this in Breakdance. Now the first thing we're going to need here is a section, but we want to adjust the padding a bit, so we'll go to spacing. We'll set the top to 60 pixels and the bottom to 0. Next, let's add a div inside of that because we have a couple other elements that we want to organize in a specific way. Under layout, we're going to make sure everything is aligned to the middle, and we'll set a gap of 32 pixels. Then we need to make sure it lays out everything horizontally by going to horizontal and setting align to center and middle. That's perfect. Next, we'll go to container and set it to 100% width. We'll also want to adjust the padding on this as well. So we'll go back to container, padding, and then let's adjust the padding to 24 pixels on the top and bottom. Now we need a border along the top, so we can open borders and set the top border to something like 1 pixel with a very light gray color. And the style will be solid. Now we can add our elements into this div. We're going to drop in a text element, and that's just going to say unlock 100 plus exclusive posts and join a community of 10K plus supporters. We're also going to go ahead and adjust the color of this to just be de-emphasized a bit, but still have enough contrast to be readable. And then we're going to add a button, just like the button we used before for Join Now, because this is also going to say Join Now and be linked to our monthly supporter pass. So we can paste that URL in there. Again, this button style is going to adapt to our site once we import that home page. Now let's make sure our border is visible enough. It looks like it needs to be a little bit darker, so let's go ahead and adjust that top border color. We're just going to drop it down a few shades, and that looks much better. So let's save that and jump back to WordPress, and now we can go over to Pages and start building our home page. So let's add new, and we'll call this page Home. Remember, our header has an element in it that is only going to show on pages where the title is not Home. So it's important to name this Home. Let's go ahead and publish that, and then we can edit that in Breakdance. To speed up our design process, I'm going to use our design library. So let's go to Add, click Library, and we're going to search for this library site that I've added. Note that this will be available to you in the video description, so if you want to use this as well, check there for the URL. Now, the first thing we want to do is import our global settings. We'll confirm, overwrite, and import. This will adjust our button styles and everything to match this design. Now we're going to want to import all of our homepage sections, which we can do by clicking the Import Page button here. And just like that, we've got our homepage, just like you saw at the beginning of the video. Now you can, of course, adjust the text, links, all of that. But we do need to go ahead and change this button to point at the subscription product. And then we would go through and adjust the About tab and everything. But you can see it's already pulling in our products for us because these are dynamic loops. So that's basically all we need for the home page. So let's save that. And let's go ahead and look at that on the front end to make sure everything's working exactly as we expect. But now for the fun part, which is setting up the logic for displaying notices and the actual content that users are paying for. So I'm going to close out some of these extra tabs and we're going to go back to the dashboard and we're going to go to Breakdance templates. We're going to need 2 templates. The first one is our single product template. So let's add a template, choose single product, and edit that in Breakdance. Now we're not getting too fancy here, but I do want to show a notice to let people know if they've already bought access to a specific piece of content or if they're a member and don't need to buy access. So we're going to drop in a product builder, and then over here just under the purchase button, we're going to drop in a notification bar. And let's change this title to say you already have access to this. Then click the link below to view the content. And this is where we use that ACF field that we added to our products. So for the link itself, we'll click the dynamic data button, and under ACF, we see paid content URL. Now let's go ahead and turn off the close button because we don't want them dismissing this notice. Then let's jump over to settings, conditions. Now we dipped our toes into conditions with the spacer in the header, but this one's going to get a little bit more interesting. So let's start by editing our conditions. And the first thing we need to do is not show this particular notice if we're viewing the all access product. So we'll choose product is not monthly supporter all access. Then we need to add an and onto that. So if the product is not monthly support all access, and we're going to open up our dropdown and scroll all the way down to the WooCommerce customer conditions and choose purchase product is one of, and then in this dropdown, we can choose current product. So this tells Breakdance to show this element to the user if they're not viewing the monthly supporter product and they have purchased the product that they're viewing. Perfect. Now we need to add an or onto that. So we'll click add condition down here. And for the or, we're going to say all the way down here at the bottom, user subscriptions is one of, and then we need to plug in the ID of the subscription product that we set up, which in this case is 40. And because the monthly subscription product doesn't have a paid content URL to link to, we don't want to show this on that product. So get rid of that. We're going to need another and here. So we'll click and we'll choose product is not, and then we'll choose our monthly supporter product there. So now this is only going to show when it's appropriate, where we want it to. Now for the monthly supporter product, we want a slightly different notification bar. So let's just duplicate this with Command or Control D. And before we get too far ahead, let's add a little bit of spacing below this category tag here. And then on this second one, let's update the title to say, you have already joined. You already have an active monthly supporter subscription. And on this one, we want to get rid of the link text entirely because we're not actually going to link to anything. Now we need to set up some conditions. They'll be slightly simpler than what we had on the other one. So let's just wipe these out completely and start from scratch to avoid confusion. Now we're only going to show this notice if the product is monthly supporter all access pass and the user subscription is one of, and then our subscription ID. So we're only going to show this if they have joined and they're viewing the subscription product. So let's go ahead and apply the conditions there. Now that pretty much takes care of the single product template. The next one we need is the one that's actually going to protect our paid content, which is going to be our single paid content template. So let's jump back to WordPress, click add template. We're going to do single post, but we're going to modify it. So let's go to settings, continue. We're going to say single paid content. And then in our location dropdown, we'll choose paid content and save that. Now we can go ahead and edit that in Breakdance. And we're going to need 2 sections here. One to show the content to people that have paid for access to it, and one to prompt non-paying visitors to pay to access the content. So let's go ahead and add our first section. And we're also going to add a notification bar. I'll come back and adjust this later. This is going to prompt people that have purchased just access to this individual piece of content to go ahead and buy the monthly supporter pass. And below that, let's go ahead and drop in a post content element. And on this, we do want to adjust a few settings. The size, we're going to set it to 700 pixels width. And then under typography, we want to go and make sure that our text is not centered. On this section, we do want to go to layout and align everything to the middle. And then we'll add a 32 pixel gap. Now let's adjust the content of this notification bar a little bit. We'll say, want more awesome content? You can unlock our entire library by becoming a monthly supporter. We'll change the link text to join now, and we'll link to our monthly supporter product. This time I'll go through our link chooser, and if we just search for monthly, it should pop up right here in the list. We'll choose that and click add link. So we've got this notification to prompt people to pay us monthly. We've got our protected content. Now we need a section to show to users that don't actually have access to this content yet. So we'll just add another section. And on this one, we're going to set a background image. We'll use one of the images that I previously uploaded here. This one should work just fine. And we do want an overlay on this because we don't want it quite so bold. So we'll just do a black overlay with some transparency here, so that we can just barely see that pattern on the background. Now inside this section, we're going to add an icon box. And again, we'll want to center this in the section. So we'll go back to the section and align it to the middle. And then the icon box itself, we'll just change the title to say paid content. And the text should say, please become a member to view this exclusive content. And then for our button, we will adjust that link to say join now. You see the common call to action throughout our header, footer, and the body of our pages is going to be join now. We want people to pay us monthly, so we reiterate that. Let's go ahead and use our link chooser again to find our monthly supporter product, and we'll link to that. Let's go ahead and save this. Now structurally, that's everything we need for this template, but now we need to apply some logic. Let's start with this top section. We're going to go to settings, conditions, and edit our conditions. So we want to show this element if, of course, someone is subscribed. So we'll start with that one. We'll do choose condition and do user subscriptions is one of 40, which is the ID of our subscription product. Now we need to add an or condition. So if they're subscribed or if they've purchased, so we'll go down here to dynamic data, and under WooCommerce, we will find a user purchases ID option. If you don't have that in your install, check the video description for more instructions on how to make sure you have access to all the conditions used in this video. Now we need to change the operand to contains, and then we're going to use some more dynamic data here. We're looking for that linked product field that we added before. Now, because of the way this works, we also need to add a prepend and append. So we'll do a pipe here and a pipe there and close that out. We'll apply these conditions. Now this section will only be shown to people who have either subscribed or purchased this specific product. Whichever product we're viewing, the logic applies the same way because we used dynamic data instead of hard coding any of our values. Now we just need to add a simple condition to this notification bar to ensure it's only shown to people who haven't already subscribed. So we'll go to settings, conditions, edit conditions, add a condition, and we'll go down to our subscriptions condition. We'll choose is none of and the ID of our subscription product. Go ahead and apply that. So that covers this section. The next thing we need to do is make sure this section shows up when it needs to. So we'll go to settings, conditions, edit conditions, and this set of conditions is just going to make sure that this section only shows up to users who do not have a subscription and have not purchased the product that this post is linked to. We're going to do user subscriptions is none of 40. Then we're going to add an and condition here. And we'll do the same thing that we did for the section above, except for kind of opposite. So we'll go to dynamic data. choose user purchases ID from the WooCommerce area, and we'll choose does not contain, and then we'll choose dynamic data here, choose our ACF field linked product, and then add those pipes as well so that that value is wrapped in a pipe and the matching can work as expected. So we'll apply that condition. Now we can save that, and it's time to take a look at our logic on the front end. So let's go ahead up to the front end, and you can see that even though I'm an admin, I can't see this content yet because I haven't joined or bought the content. So the first thing we're going to look at is a purchase of an individual piece of content. So let's go back to our homepage and scroll down to one of these bits of content. Let's do this podcast. Add that to cart, view our cart, and we'll go ahead and proceed to checkout here. We'll just plug in some details, and let's drop in a country, region, zip code, phone number, just enough so that WooCommerce lets us actually place the order, and we'll go ahead and complete that purchase. Now let's go back to home, and let's view that product that we just bought. Now we'll start to see our conditions in action. So it's the podcast that we purchased, and it says we already have access to that. So let's go back to that piece of content, and now we actually see the content instead of the notice that we need to purchase this content. We also have the option to join now. Now, just to illustrate the monthly supporter aspect of this, let's go back to our homepage, back one more time here, and let's go to the piece of content we didn't purchase access to. Let's take a look at that. And you can see here, there's no notice that we've already purchased it, and there's no link to get to the content. If we go into the back end, we can visit that content and see that it's still gated. So let's go to paid content. We bought the podcast, so if we view that one, we have complete access to it. But if we view the documentary, we do not. So instead of buying that, let's go ahead and buy the monthly subscription. So let's go ahead and click the Join Now button up here, and let's click Sign Up Now. Now, because I don't have an actual payment gateway set up on this site, it's not going to let me fully complete the purchase. So I'll add the subscription manually on the back end. And once that subscription is active on my account, if we go to any of the pieces of content that are for sale, so we did buy the podcast, we did not buy the documentary, so let's go ahead and go to that one. You can see that we already have access to this. And if we click the link to get to the content, it's going to take us to that content, and we have full access to that and every other piece of content that uses this template where we set up our conditional logic. So as you can see, with Breakdance's advanced conditions and super simple dynamic data integration, it's incredibly easy to set up a full-featured membership site with gated content without having to pay for any additional membership-specific plugins. Again, this is Elijah from Breakdance, and thank you very much for watching.